two parties. This is what division is. You're going to have those who support Sheikh B and those who are attacking Sheikh B. And as this feeling and as this rivalry increases, then the level of hatred and the level of division between the two parties, to the point that maybe even one of the parties might even create their own mosque and start attending their own mosque or their own meetings, so they don't have to put up with those people who are still respecting Sheikh B and so forth. This kind of situation occurs over and over again, unfortunately, within the midst of the Muslims. It is similar to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing in this these verses in the Quran, بَغْيًا بَيْنَهُمْ, that they have this enmity, and this enmity, much of it, sometimes even maybe even all of it, is built on a kind of envy, built on a kind of dislike that someone has some kind of respect, or someone has some kind of following that the other person's sheikh, that the other person's leader does not have, and so forth. Sometimes, for example, someone might want to be the imam of a mosque. There's an imam position open, and then someone wants to be the imam of a mosque, but the community decides for whatever reason to give that job and that responsibility to somebody else. So this person who desired it, maybe even he wasn't very open about his desire, but he felt like he deserves it, it should come to him, and this is something in his heart, that this is something that he wanted. Sometimes they're open about it, sometimes they're not so open about it. But when they're not given the position, and they felt that they were deserving of giving the position, then this malice and this envy builds up in their heart. And of course, what's going to happen? Well, if the person, inshallah, has some iman, inshallah, he will crush this envy in his heart. But what happens many times is that then the person acts upon this envy. He acts to remove or to damage the reputation of that imam. That imam who was given that job instead of him whom he thought he should have gotten it, he will act to remove that imam. Sometimes even he will not get the position of imam. And sometimes he may even realize that by his actions, he is doing things that it'll be clear to him that he's not going to get the position of the imam. But the important thing for him is that he's going to make sure that that person who got the job instead of him in the first place is going to be removed. And exactly the same as in the first case. What is going to be the effect on the community? There can only be one effect really on the community, and that is division. Because by default, you're going to count, this person is doing something wrong, and unfortunately, even though he's doing something wrong, he will probably get followers, he'll probably get people who support him. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. And you're going to find some people who are going to stand up for the truth, and who are going to defend the imam who is being harmed, and who deserves the position, and who was chosen for the position. And so therefore, by definition, you're going to get division. And we have to realize that power and leadership, positions of authority and esteem and so forth, these are great trials from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are great trials from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are things that some people dearly, dearly love. They want to have these things for themselves. They have to be the center of attention. They have to be the center of authority. And so therefore, if they are not given that attention, if they're not given that respect, if they're not given that authority, inside they cannot stand that other people are given that authority and position and so forth. And so therefore, immediately they become envious of those people who are given that position of authority and respect that they so greatly desire. And that desire in their hearts, which in itself is a disease, can easily lead to the greater and more harmful disease of hasad, of envy. And the disease of hasad and envy can many times be acted upon, where the person actively goes out to destroy the others who were given positions of authority and leadership instead of them. So this is a very dangerous disease, and I don't think I have to actually talk about it too much and mention the fact that this is something that occurs, unfortunately, within our community, within, for example, the United States and many different places. See cases where when you So the big issue, as we said, all sorts of emotions, all sorts of thoughts can come to a person's mind and to his heart. And the big issue is, what does the person do with respect to those feelings and those emotions that may come fleetingly to his heart? If he allows them to build and grow, then obviously he's committing a sin. But if he recognizes the evil that is in his heart and tries to take steps to conceal it, then inshallah he will not be sinful. So we have, for example, those people who it comes fleetingly to them and they're able to conceal it. It is just something like passing, like feelings of shirk and kufr. Inshallah, they will not be held responsible for that. We have, on the other end, we have those people who, even if they don't act upon it, they like the feeling, they're not upset with the feeling, and so therefore, even though they have this disease in their heart, they are, according to the majority of the scholars, they are committing a sin. And as Ibn Rajab said, then it will also be very easy for them afterwards to actually act upon that, and therefore we could say compound their sin by doing something openly which is without any question a sin. Now there are those people who do get this feeling of envy in their hearts, and they recognize the fact that it is envy, but unfortunately they cannot control it. Okay, again, they don't act upon it, they don't speak, they don't say any, for example, they don't backbite the one that they are envious of to try to harm the person or the bounty that he has received. So they recognize the wrong in their heart, but they cannot control it. In other words, they try to remove that feeling from their hearts, but they cannot remove it. So they recognize the wrong, they're not accepting it, but at the same time they're not strong enough to remove that feeling in their heart. So the feeling is staying with them. So these people, inshallah, these people are not sinful for that thing which they cannot control. They are recognizing it as wrong. Now, of course, everyone has to be honest with themselves. Everyone has to be truly honest with themselves and see whether or not they're actually acting upon al-hasad, whether or not they are speaking words that are based on al-hasad, whether or not they are enjoying al-hasad, or whether or not they are truly trying to fight al-hasad in their hearts. And this is one of the most difficult things that human beings have to face, that they have to be honest with respect to themselves. Human beings many times make excuses for themselves, cover up their own faults and say, oh no, there's nothing wrong with it, it's not that level of al-hasad. May even act upon al-hasad and still say to themselves, oh no, it's not affecting me, I don't have hasad, and so forth. So when we talk about these different states, a very important aspect is that the individuals have to be honest with themselves. Now you think that this would go without saying, because for someone to be dishonest to himself, who is he hurting? He's only hurting himself. But that is the nature of these diseases of the heart. Like someone who smokes, for example. The main person of course we know about secondhand smoke and so forth nowadays, but the main person that he's hurting is himself. So it does happen that people hurt themselves. Even though we consider human beings rational human beings, and all of economics is built on the assumption that human beings are rational human beings do things that hurt themselves, and they are not honest with themselves. Those people, inshallah, who purify their souls, inshallah, they are the people who can be honest with themselves, truly self-critical, without going to either extreme, making excuses for themselves, or overly criticizing themselves to such a state that to such an extent that they're in a state of despair and they cannot do anything and cannot even act for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when one is honest with himself and finds that he has this feeling of al-hasad, and he knows it's wrong, and he's trying to control, but he's not able to control it, then inshallah, in a state like that, the person is not held sinful and not held responsible for something that is beyond his means. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. He has tried his best, but it is something beyond his means, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not burden the soul